Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teenaccounts.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
And a meeting has wrapped up between New York Mayor Zoran Mondani and Jacob Fry in Minneapolis. It is interesting, sort of the secrecy around this. Apparently it wasn't on the mayor's schedule, mayor of New York. Why not? Why was he trying to kind of sneak him in? And then they didn't do any press conference or comments afterwards. What was he trying to give him pointers on what a beautiful job he did there in Minneapolis? I'd say on a 1 to 10, he gets a -1. What does he want to tell him about what a great job he did during the Summer of Love when the police station there in Minneapolis burned to the ground? Well, I guess two peas in a pod, because they do seem to have very similar philosophies in terms of ICE out of the cities. Remember, even when Tom Homan was talking about reducing the amount of ICE officers, they were like, oh, no. It can't be a reduction. It needs to be a full withdrawal. Now, Tom Homan today did come out and say that they are planning on withdrawing. He said, we feel like our mission here short term is done. We can certainly come back at any point in time, and we definitely probably will. But in the meantime, we've got other cities we got to work on. So Fry then flies out and meets with Zoran Mondani, and the word is they discuss shared values between the two on how to discuss immigrants, illegal immigrants. Isn't that lovely, essentially, what that's all about? How cities need to step up and protect our illegals, our criminals. He doesn't separate and say, yeah, bad people should get out, and maybe those who haven't committed serious crimes, that's another matter. No, there's no distinction. It's okay, we need to just protect all of them. Because that's essentially what he did in Minneapolis. And boy, I think his language was so incendiary and so provocative and certainly fueled the flames there. Well, here is Mayor Mondani. This is what he said in the past, of course, about standing up to ICE. And no wonder he and Jacob Fry are going to become fast friends. Remember when Mondani said this?
Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, said this week that in response to that video you put out about knowing your rights, what to do if ICE comes knocking on your door, if you were mayor, you could have been violating the Constitution of the United States, and that she intimated that the Department of Justice might be looking into it. What's your response to Kristi Noem?
I'm proud to inform people of their rights, and I can't think of a more American thing to do than to speak about the protections that we all have under the law.
Are you prepared? Gavin Newsom told me he was prepared to be arrested. Tom Homan threatened anybody that stands in the way could be arrested. You've been arrested before, standing up for people's rights. J.B. Pritzker told me that Donald Trump should come and get me. You prepared to be arrested by the federal government if you stand up to their immigration enforcement?
I'm prepared for any consequence that comes for standing up for New Yorkers, because that's my job. That's what I ran to do. And I think that it's time that New Yorkers look at City Hall that's right here and see a reflection of their struggles as opposed to a reflection of the scandal that has engulfed so much of our politics.
That was a big word salad, but essentially ICE out. And it sure sounds a lot like Jacob Fry. Remember when Jacob Fry famously said this, and he didn't apologize for it?
Let me ask you, during those incredibly emotional moments and hours after the shooting of Renee Good, you went on national television and you said to ICE, get the F out of Minneapolis. Do you regret that language? I mean, that doesn't sound like turning the temperature down.
I don't regret it at all. In the moments before I went out there to do that press conference, I learned that Kristi Noem had already jumped to a conclusion as to the ICE agent's conduct, saying that it was purely self-defense. Minutes or hours later, you had her saying that Renee Good was a domestic terrorist. If I seemed like I was angry and frustrated, I was. And part of my responsibility as mayor is to channel what the people in our city are feeling. And the people in our city were angry. They were upset. And at the same time, from the very beginning, we were saying the same thing, which is we got to keep the peace. We're not going to counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos here. Yes, we stand up. Yes, we peacefully protest. And we're not going to go down this route that gives them the excuse to come in with greater numbers. They're looking for an excuse. They're trying to intimidate Minneapolis residents. But I'll tell you, I've seen tens of thousands of people remain composed, to line up, to get groceries to people that are scared to go outside, to make sure that people have a walk to their car on their way back home from work. I mean, there have been so many beautiful things that have taken place here in Minneapolis. And I'll tell you, this is another thing to remember. It's January in Minneapolis.
It's cold.
It's like negative temperatures out there, but people have never felt warmer.
People have never felt warmer, creating blockades so regular citizens can't get through, so ICE can't get through. People have never felt warmer, storming hotels because they believe ICE are there. People have never felt warmer when there was a guy the other day who led authorities on a chase. He apparently had some sex assaults in his background, and then people came out of the woodwork and started whistling and trying to block the guy from getting arrested. Can you imagine a world where somebody who has a sex offense is being protected by the average citizens so police can't get that bad person off the streets? Well, that's why there's so much attention now on sanctuary cities. And that was the big thing that Tom Homan was talking about today as he was talking about the drawdown clearly there in Minneapolis. And he said, but we're not dropping out. We're still fighting the fight, and we're going all over the place. And he implored Congress to start looking at abolishing sanctuary cities, on making a ruling on sanctuary cities. It's a very, very important message because these sanctuary cities are where indeed a lot of these individuals with violent history are finding safe haven. And I couldn't believe it. A couple hours ago, a whole bunch of Democrats, only one, John Fetterman, voted to make sure that DHS was funded. The rest of the Democrats in the Senate all voted against it. And that means there probably will be a partial government shutdown as early as Saturday morning. And that would include not just, it's not ICE funding, because that's actually already funded. This is all theatrics. What it is FEMA, it's TSA. So it could mess up flights again, guys, just like it did a few weeks ago. This is like, round 2 or 3 with the Democrats. But it doesn't seem like there's any budging. Listen to this guy. This is Congressman Stephen Cohen, Democrat of Tennessee. And if you ask him, he thinks Americans are the bad guys.
We need people working in the front lines and local law enforcement to protect our citizens from the worst of the worst. The worst of the worst are not the immigrants. The worst of the worst, records show, are native-born Americans, and they are committing crimes that hurt our citizens and our cities. And you're working against it, and thank you for that. But by trying to get our local law enforcement, where we have an undercount of officers in Memphis, to leave Memphis and go to work for ICE to deport people is a wrong priority.
So the worst of the worst are native-born Americans. How anti-American is that from Steve Cohen? And how crazy that virtually every single Democrat, minus John Fetterman, voted to block funding for DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, because ICE is under that umbrella. Because they want to say to their constituents, we took a stand. They want to demask ICE. They want to put body cameras on all ICE officers. They want to do a whole bunch of different reforms. And unless they can get all those reforms, which aren't going to happen, they're not going to be demasked. If they're getting threats, they have to have masks to protect them and their family. But here's Professor Alan Dershowitz. We spoke with him earlier on Katz and Cosby, and he talked about how it is time to crack down on these sanctuary cities. Cities like New York City under Zoran Mondani, and cities like Minneapolis under Jacob Frey.
No, I completely agree. First of all, I am now a Fetterman Democrat. As long as the Democratic Party follows Fetterman, I could consider returning to the party. But I would never become the kind of Democrat that now, a Schumer Democrat, or an AOC Democrat. So, the Democrat Party is splitting. But, if I were a Republican, obviously I couldn't become a Tucker Carlson Republican. So, we have problems in both parties. Look, I think that the Homans is doing the right thing. Sanctuary cities, I have said this on your show, are unconstitutional. Sanctuary cities basically say we are like the segregationists in 1954. We're not going to cooperate with integration. We're not going to cooperate with desegregation. We're not going to cooperate with the federal government trying to do the right thing. And I don't see any big difference between the segregationists and the sanctuary city people. They're both defying the Constitution. They're violating the Supremacy Clause. And they're basically trying to secede from the Union and saying, all right, you have the president, you have the United States, but we're separate. We're not bound by American law. And that's just wrong and unconstitutional. And I'm glad it's being pushed, and I'm on their side.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what will happen in Congress. Needless to say, every single Democrat's going to say, no, sanctuary cities, good. I guess native-born Americans, bad.